often see the fun and mind-blowing side of chemistry, you can't have experiments without little hiccups along the way, and those hiccups often lead to different disasters. So we're here today to talk about the Texas City explosion of 1947, which was a crazy disaster that happened in Texas City. So as I said before, this disaster and explosion happened in Texas City, Texas, but it happened on April 16th around 8 o'clock that morning, and the explosion lasted until April 17th of 1947. So this disaster was sparked by the French-owned SS Grand Champ, which was a cargo ship, obviously that came from France, but it ported in Texas City, Texas. So the morning of April 16th, the crew was loading up the ship with ammonium nitrate fertilizer, which is what the ship was known for carrying. So they were loading that up. This was 2,300 tons of ammonium nitrate fertilizer to be exact, so that's a lot of cargo. So you can only imagine how bad this disaster ended up being. So after they were loading up the cargo, this is around like 8 o'clock that morning, they noticed that there was flames coming from where they stowed away the cargo. But instead of taking action and jumping on it like they should have and extinguishing the fire, they didn't use water to extinguish it. They just tried to snuff away the flames and just not worry about it and keep going on about their business. So after they did that, it kind of put a little band-aid over the smoke that they had been seeing, but they didn't actually really do much about it. So about an hour later, around 9 o'clock, the cargo just got to a temperature to where it just could no longer sit there anymore. So it created a spark and a massive explosion, and it ended up destroying the dock, obviously, that the ship was ported at, and then it also destroyed another chemical plant that was nearby, and then there was another ship that was actually carrying sulfur, so it destroyed that and reacted with that. And then there was also planes that were coming by at the time, and it destroyed those planes, and not to mention all the lives that were destroyed around it, and then the houses. It left about 2,000 people homeless because it just destroyed absolutely everything within the vicinity and even farther than that. So you can only imagine the different chemicals mixed together, what health problems it caused, the deaths that it caused, and just the damage overall that it caused, especially since it was a 2-day fire. So it started the morning of April 16th and it didn't end until April 17th. So it really was just a devastating disaster that could have been so easily fixed, but just one little small hiccup like that led to such a big explosion and a disaster. Overall, I think that the crew members were really the one to blame for this explosion, because like I said, the initial start of all of this was just something that was so small and could have been such an easy fix if they would have just extinguished it the correct way, or at least called the fire department to come look at it and extinguish it the way that it should have been. Then it would have never even gotten to that point where it reached that temperature and caused that spark. And then obviously once it caused the spark, it was too late to do anything about it. So I feel like if they would have jumped on it whenever they could have, then it really would have just prevented the entire disaster. Between 400 and 600 people were killed this day, including 4,000 people that were injured and have lasting medical conditions from this disaster. So the chemicals involved in this disaster were obviously the ammonium nitrate, which was the biggest cause for it. But then after the ammonium nitrate kind of started the disaster, it then reacted with different things like sulfur and different things from the chemical plant, and produced petroleum, which people were breathing in and caused a lot of medical problems and deaths, as well as the ammonium nitrate and sulfur. So there was a lot of different chemicals involved in this disaster, but ammonium nitrate was the main source.
So to learn more about ammonium nitrate, here's some quick facts. So ammonium nitrate is obviously a solid, and it's white, but it could have a gray to brown tint. It's odorless and soluble, and its molecular formula is NH4NO3, and its explosion temperature is 260 to 300 degrees Celsius. Different products that this is used in, it's used to make fertilizers and explosives, obviously, and it can also be a nutrient in producing antibiotics and yeast. So next up, we have sulfur. Sulfur is also a solid as well, and it's yellow, and it normally has a rotten egg sort of smell. It's insoluble in water, and its molecular formula is just an S. And its explosion temperature is 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. And sulfur is used in black gunpowder, matches, fireworks, and can also be used in the manufacture of phosphate fertilizers and for treatment of certain skin diseases.
So most of the medical conditions from this specific disaster mostly led to death, but if they didn't die and they had medical conditions, some of those could have been nausea, dizziness, a lot of skin irritation and eye irritation, and then some more chronic medical conditions were pneumonia, irregular heartbeats, and convulsions, and could even lead to a coma from just breathing in so many of those fumes and chemicals at one time.
Last but certainly not least, we're going to go over the different regulations that have changed now because of this disaster. So they're definitely so much more strict on different things containing ammonium nitrate, specifically the fertilizer. There's different regulations now for storage, and it says to avoid localized heating of ammonium nitrate, potentially leading to development of high temperatures, and keeping ammonium nitrate in confined spaces, which this obviously wasn't a rule whenever this disaster happened in 1947, or the disaster probably wouldn't have happened. So I'm very thankful that these regulations exist now, so now we can promote a safer environment with ammonium nitrate.